Hello, ladies and gentlemen, to another Next Talks. Today at Next Talks, we speak with an amazing female leader who is Renée Amundsen. Renée is the Vice President Global Business Innovation at Merck Group. But first question, hi Renée, how are you?
Hi Dario, I'm well, and how are you?
It's not bad, actually. Preparing for summer, I would say. It's a long journey to go, but okay, we will be there.
Excellent.
Okay, Renée. So first question which we prepared for you is you combine a very challenging role between franchise and affiliates. And how does that impact your daily leadership routine?
Yeah, exactly, Dario. So global business innovation in Merck Healthcare, we operate in the intersect between the global business franchise and the countries, and we help them to translate and operationalize their strategy. So as you can imagine, our stakeholder map is very complex and diverse. So it has been very important to establish a proper structure and operating model to stay close to our internal customers to understand their needs and how we can support them. And also a very clear governance structure for efficient decision making and progress in implementation. And from a leadership standpoint, for me, it has been important to empower the team to make decisions at the lowest possible and appropriate level, not to lose speed and pace, because I would hate to see global being a slow animal while the countries need to act with very high sense of urgency. So we don't want to slow them down. So that's definitely a strong focus in my daily life.
Thank you, Renée. And I suppose the last 24 months have been extremely busy in your role, right?
Definitely. And, you know, I entered this role exactly when the pandemic more or less hit and the digital transformation took a quantum leap. So everybody needed support from my group. So we have been extremely busy, definitely over the past couple of years.
I can imagine. And this leads me to my next question, which is how do you train and maintain your innovation mindset?
So that's an interesting question, and I maybe wasn't that conscious about it before the question was raised. And reflecting on it, I think it's twofolded. So I think on one side, it's ingrained in my personality, and on the other side, it's more conscious training and stimulation. So I have a very curious mindset. I've been the kid that asked all the questions, and my parents got tired of everything that I asked. But this is the curious mindset is really nurturing innovation and change. And I always ask questions to get behind the obvious in people's answers. And that I see as a true inspiration for finding new solutions and change and innovation. On the second part, I talk to a lot of people. I like to speak to people with diverse backgrounds that has a different perspective than I do, and also searching in other industries to see what can we learn in the pharma industry from other industries. So that is broadening also my horizon. What I would also highlight is embracing failure. So what I try to foster in my organization is the fail fast mentality. I think in general in business, it's a huge problem that we're so good at talking about what we're extremely good at, but we try to hide all the failures. But if you reflect on it, the situation we all have learned the most from is from our failures. So in that sense, I want us to move faster, like don't perfectionize things. We move when we have a version 0.8 and then we test it out. And if it fails, then we learn and we can further shape and take that with us in future projects. So this is something I really strongly believe in, but it requires a culture of psychological safety, which is also important. And the last point that I want to mention is also reading. I read books that teach me something that I didn't know or gives a new perspective on things. So after reflecting on it, there are actually things that I actively do to maintain my curiosity and innovative spirit.
Thank you. Which book are you currently reading, just for my curiosity?
So it's actually currently now The Cultural Map. So
Okay.
it's very related to diversity. So really understanding in business how people from diverse backgrounds really react and what their expectations are in different business settings. So leading a global team, this really is an inspiration for me.
Thank you very much. I would recommend you also the new book from Walter Isaacson, Code Cracking, which is related to the CRISPR technology in pharma. It's an amazing book, so you should definitely read that as well.
I will definitely put that on my list for sure.
Thank you very much. Next question. After 20 years in pharma, what has dramatically changed in our industry?
I would say what hasn't changed, because it's really a long laundry list. Imagine like the new classes of drugs moving from a world where we had big blockbusters to now precision medicine, how we have globalized our supply chain, the capabilities, the operating model, the empowerment of patients. I mean, there's so many things, but to highlight one area which has really evolved, I think, is the how we as an industry interact with the HCPs and the focus we have had on transparency and compliance. And I think the pharma industry is a very good self-regulating industry. And if we remember back in 2013, FPA decided on the Disclosure Act inspired by the Sunshine Act in the US, where we as an industry, we disclose every year transfer of value to HCPs and HCOs, which I think has really been a healthy direction, because at the end of the day, we were science companies, science and technology companies, and when the patients come to the HCP, there should always be the focus on what is best fit in terms of treatment for that patient. So there shouldn't be a question about it. So I think the trust element has really taken huge steps in the right direction over the past 20 years. And the focus in the interactions with the HCPs is now much more scientific partnership, which is at the end of the day improving quality of care for patients. And maybe since I represent global business innovation, I think what we saw happen with the pandemic, I mean, the digital transformation took a quantum leap. Almost overnight, we were adopting to new ways of staying connected. And as you know, I represent the Nordics and Norway, which is in general a very digital savvy or region. We were almost a cashless society, but even here, the HCPs were a bit hesitant to move to the virtual format. But like overnight, as I said, we're forced to, and now everybody really sees the benefit, the access to the latest research, connecting with your peers, discussing patient cases across the globe, and the access to information has really dramatically changed. And at the end of the day, again, it really benefits the quality of care.
Thank you, Renée. Next question. Who is actually Renée as leader, and what leadership style do you try to accomplish? A very hard question.
Yeah, and quite an awkward question to answer yourself, right? I wish somebody else could maybe respond on my behalf. But so I think I'm seen as a very passionate, dedicated, transparent, and authentic leader. So no hidden agendas, very straightforward. And what has been a very strong focus throughout my career is to find the right balance between being very ambitious on behalf of the organization, setting ambitious targets, but investing equally in a strong internal culture and focusing on how do we actually get there. I think that's really where the key lies in strong leadership. If you are excellent in achieving business objectives, but you score very low on cultural measures, then it means that it's a culture that is typically a bit hostile, competitive in a way, not in a healthy way. It doesn't nurture collaboration. It's not focusing on how do we guys get there and what is our collective direction. However, if you flip it and you're strong on cultural measures, but don't deliver on the business performance or business objectives, then there is maybe too little expectations, too little demand, and a nice and cozy place, but not really moving the organization forward. So I believe that in that balance strongly, and I'm not a big fan of like quotes, but I've really seen the power and the value of culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is something that I focus on in my leadership. And one component for me that is key is trust. One Norwegian businessman who said in an interview 2 years ago that the Norwegian gold is not the oil, it's trust. So it's something we automatically give to people. You don't have to earn it, but if you misuse it, you will see that I change my way of managing and leading. So I trust that people are here because they want to do a good job and achieve great things together. And my job is really to create the right environment for people to succeed.
Excellent. And the last question from this question section, which is leading a multicultural team is certainly a big challenge, right? So what is the importance of inclusion and diversity for you and, for instance, for Merck?
Yeah. So diversity, equity, and inclusion is key to Merck's success throughout more than 350 years, and it's a key strategic priority. We have a strong focus on establishing and creating teams that are formed of people with very diverse background when it comes to nationalities, gender, languages, cultures, education, and age, because we strongly believe that fosters innovation and idea creation, which will lead to great things in terms of successful science and technology achievements. For GBI, I'm very proud to say that we represent a true global team and very diverse team. So we have 15 nationalities represented and operating out of 13 countries. So we're really living diversity in the global business innovation. And on a personal level, I'm very passionate about women in leadership. And I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion is so much more than gender. But being a female leader in pharma myself, this is something that is very close to my heart. And I mean, it's even shown in research that it has a business impact. If you have top management teams, which has a better gender balance, you can improve the performance by up to 50%. So I spend time on trying to inspire women, especially younger talents, to dare to take the step to take on leadership roles. And hopefully I'm contributing to closing the gender gap in the pharma industry.
Thank you, Renée. Very inspirational answer indeed. Quick fire questions. Most innovative company for you?
I know it's fire question, but I think it's really up for debate. I think typically you would say some of the tech companies like Amazon, Apple, or Microsoft. But I think it's worth celebrating some of the pharma industry players that was this year or last year, 2021, on the most innovative companies because of their contribution and the speed in developing COVID vaccines and also testing kits.
Excellent answer. Anything what the world can learn from Norway?
A lot. No. I think trust and transparency is something that is so ingrained in our culture and which is really uniting us as a nation. I think also equality, which we just talked about. Norway is consistently ranked among the top countries in the world when it comes to gender equalness. And it's important to be aware of that this is a systematic effort from the authorities. It's not something that just happens. So there's several supporting initiatives behind it.
Excellent. And diversity for sure, because we all know that Norway is the benchmark for it, right?
Exactly. And I mean, some of the initiatives the authorities and government have done is they introduced several years back a quota law of the gender representation in the boards of listed companies, as one example. So they were forced to also include women in top leadership groups. And also with parental leave, there's a special quota for men, which cannot be moved to the mother. So that increases the representation of women in work life. And it also gives more equality on the domestic front as well, in terms of taking care of the family.
Thank you. Next question, data or innovation?
So for me, it's not either or. It's really data is the opportunity to get meaningful insights translating into innovation.
Thank you. And the last one, proudest moment in your life?
The proudest moment in my life, there's 2 days. Day one was when I became a mother to my daughter, Sophia, and the second was the day I became a mother to my son, Martinius.
Very inspirational answer. So Renée, it was a great pleasure to have you and looking forward to meet you one day in person as well. So thank you very much and take very good care.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure being here.